Hey everyone! So today we're going to talk about a pretty simple idea that has had a huge impact on how we think about success. It's really shaken things up in education, in parenting, even in the business world. And it all comes down to this. What if the key to unlocking our potential isn't about how smart we are, but about what we believe about getting smarter?
Okay, so here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll look at the big puzzle of motivation that started it all. Then, we'll get into the two core mindsets, fixed versus growth. After that, we'll dive into some really surprising research about praise, look at some of the tough questions and criticisms the theory has faced, and finally, wrap up with how we can all start rewiring our own approach to learning.
So, where did this whole thing even come from? Well, it all started with a really fundamental question, one that gets to the very heart of why some of us succeed and, well, why some of us don't.
I mean, you've seen this, right? You give two people the exact same tough problem. One person's eyes light up and they just dive right in, excited. The other person, they just shut down, maybe feel a little defeated before they've even begun. Why is that? As it turns out, the answer probably has a lot less to do with our actual raw ability and way more to do with what we believe about it.
For the psychologist behind all this, Carol Dweck, this wasn't just some abstract academic question. It was personal. See, back in her own 6th grade class, the teacher seated everyone based on their IQ scores. The kids with the highest IQs were treated like they were special, praised for this number they had no control over. And for Dweck, it created this constant fear of failure, this anxiety that any little mistake would prove she wasn't actually that smart. And that feeling, that experience, is what kicked off her entire career trying to figure this stuff out. And all that searching, all that research, it led her to this one huge idea. It all boils down to two completely different and totally opposing beliefs that we hold about where our intelligence comes from. Okay, so this is the absolute core of it all. On one hand, you have the fixed mindset. If you're in this camp, you believe that your intelligence is basically set in stone. You've got a certain amount, and that's your lot in life. So your main goal is to just constantly prove you're smart and, most importantly, avoid looking dumb at all costs. But then you've got the growth mindset. Here, the belief is that intelligence is something that can be grown and developed. It's like a muscle. Success isn't about proving you've got it. It's about stretching yourself, learning, and getting better. And, Dweck herself summed it up perfectly here. It's not about some fantasy that anyone can just wake up and be a genius. No, it's the belief that everyone can get smarter, that everyone can develop their abilities if they put in the effort and have the right strategies. It really puts the power back in our own hands. And I mean, these aren't just small differences in opinion. They create two completely different psychological worlds to live in. In the fixed mindset world, effort is actually a bad thing. It's threatening, because if you have to try hard, it must mean you're not a natural. Failure is absolutely devastating. It feels like a final judgment. But in the growth mindset world, effort is the magic ingredient. It's what makes you smarter. And failure, it's not a verdict, it's just feedback. It's a chance to learn and figure out what to do differently next time. All right, now this is where things get really interesting, and maybe even a little uncomfortable for some of us, especially if you're a parent or a teacher. We're talking about praise. I mean, it seems like the most natural thing in the world, right? A kid gets a good grade and you say, wow, you're so smart. We think we're boosting their confidence. But what if I told you the research shows that kind of praise can actually backfire? Big time. It's a shocking idea, I know, but the evidence is pretty powerful. So let's walk through their classic experiment from back in '98. Here's how it went down. They had a bunch of 5th graders solve some problems. Afterwards, half of them were told, you must be really smart at this. The other half were told, you must have worked really hard. Then came the crucial part. They offered the kids a choice for their next task. And guess what? The kids praised for being smart overwhelmingly chose an easier puzzle. They didn't want to risk their smart label. But the kids praised for hard work, they chose a harder one when they were told they'd learn from. And when things inevitably got tough, the smart kids just fell apart, while the hard work kids just kept going. But wait, it gets even crazier. When the researchers later asked the students to report their scores, nearly 40%, that's almost half, of the kids who were praised for their intelligence lied about how well they did. They inflated their scores. That smart label became so tied to their identity that they couldn't even admit to failing. So what's the big takeaway here? It's a total game changer. If you want to build kids who are resilient, who love learning, you have to praise the process, not the person. You praise what they can control, not some fixed trait they were born with. So what does that actually sound like? Well, instead of saying, you're a natural at math, you could say something like, wow, I really like how you tried a bunch of different ways to solve that problem until you got it. Or, you really buckled down and studied for that test, and look at how much you've improved. See the difference? You're praising things they can actually do again next time. Their strategies, their focus, their persistence. That's the stuff that builds real confidence.
Okay, so mindset theory sounds pretty amazing, right? But it's not that simple. Like any huge idea that gets really popular, it's faced some serious pushback and important critiques. And to really understand it, we need to look at the whole picture.
So let's get into the main arguments against it. First up, replication issues. Some scientists have had a really hard time getting the same results as Dweck's original studies, which suggests the effects might not be as robust as we thought. Second, and this is a big one, is the criticism that it puts all the blame on the individual. It can sound like you're telling a student in a tough situation, hey, the problem isn't your underfunded school, it's your bad mindset. And even Carol Dweck herself has warned about what she calls a false growth mindset, this watered-down version where teachers just praise effort endlessly without actually giving kids the tools and strategies they need to improve. Finally, a huge study in the UK found that a big mindset program didn't really move the needle on academic achievement, which raises real questions about its impact at scale. So where does that leave us? Do we just throw the whole idea out? Not at all. It just means we have to be smarter about how we apply it. The focus is shifting from just a simple belief to a much more thoughtful practice. Look, despite all the debates, the truth is this idea has left a permanent mark. It's fundamentally changed the conversation around learning. It's forced all of us, educators, parents, managers, to think way more deeply about motivation, about resilience, and about the powerful messages we send every single day. And you can actually see its DNA in some really cutting-edge stuff. Take modern AI tutors. A lot of them are being built on these exact principles. They're programmed to encourage students to improve mastery, that's a total growth mindset goal, while also kind of nudging them away from avoiding loss, which is that classic fixed mindset fear. It's a pretty cool evolution of the theory. And this is all evolved into something more structured, something called growth mindset pedagogy. This isn't just about putting up posters that say believe in yourself. It's a real, structured teaching method. It means focusing on each individual student's learning journey, helping them set goals around getting better, not just getting good grades, and, this is key, actually teaching them concrete strategies for what to do when they get stuck. And that really brings us to the most powerful takeaway from all of this. The coolest part about mindset theory is that your mindset itself isn't, well, it isn't fixed. We can actually change what we believe. So the final question isn't for researchers or for teachers, it's for you. What will you choose to believe about your own potential to learn, to struggle, and to grow?